welcome back to another episode of Spoiler Talk, where we talk spoilers. This week, we decided to watch the movie Lady Snowblood. You pitched to me as a movie you talked to someone about, and they said it was a heavy inspiration for Kill Bill. So that's kind of essentially the only thing I knew about it, and if I hadn't known that, I would have noticed within 45 seconds of the movie, because the first 5 minutes of the movie are so Tarantino that if you told me he'd made this, I'd have been like, yeah, of course he did. Like it's so, like not the whole movie, but there's so much of this where I'm like, I don't know. I just felt it was so weird. I kind of think
the whole movie.
The whole movie. I was gonna say just like different, like maybe bits, but this whole movie is so. It was kind of surreal watching something where I'm like, I feel like I've almost seen this movie.
Yeah.
Like no, you're right. Like essentially every aspect of it, but it's like so much of it. I was like, what the fuck, like. But just particularly the start because of the music and just the way, like that stuff where you're like looking through the panels at first and the white snow, then the white snow turned red and then blood splattered on the screen and the tile appeared. And I'm like, that's just so Tarantino. And like the way she's walking and and I was just, he really took quite a fucking lot from this movie, didn't he? Like,
he takes a lot from so many places. But he really does.
This for Kill Bill specifically, though, it's like...
More Volume 1 than 2.
Oh, yes. No, it's essentially Volume 1 verbatim in a weird way. Like, it's got like the lady henchman... the lady villain has like a bunch of henchmen. In this movie, it's 8. In his, it's 88. You know, there's...
But I gotta say that I love the movie.
Fuck yeah, it's so good. It's so good.
I also really was surprised by it, and it went in directions that I didn't think it was going to go, and the plot unfolded in a manner which, I don't know, I found like, even though Kill Bill borrows so heavily from it, they're kind of different stories, and he's paying homage to this movie among many others. So he's drawing from, so many wells and combining it all together so effortlessly, and somehow he makes it work. And I think that's why you really fundamentally have to have this knowledge embedded within you from like a deep passion of like loving the original, and that's the only way you're able to remix things and stylize them and kind of execute them in a manner that doesn't just become laughable or ludicrous or amateurish. And it's kind of everything I hate about the Boondock Saints movie.
Damn, I wish I'd seen it. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, it's the word. It's kind of the best example of that Tarantino mimicry for me does not work, but for some reason does work with a certain audience. It feels like a reaction to Tarantino, but they don't have anywhere near the knowledge of filmmaking that Tarantino has. So Tarantino can call back to a movie like this and reintroduce the audience, or just introduce the audience to elements that, quite frankly, I would never have watched otherwise, potentially. Like, it's very easy that people in the West will go their entire lives and never hear of Lady Snowblood and never watch it. My mum's never heard of this movie. I would bet money on it, and she'll probably never watch it, and that's a shame because it's great. And the fact that she kind of did get to watch it because she's seen Kill Bill and she really liked Kill Bill, and it has so many elements but is telling its own story, and it leaves the door open. That's what Tarantino does really well. He's not just doing style for style's sake. Sometimes he is, but for the most part, he's telling his own story with the flair from the things that he loves from the past. And that's why his work works, because the story at the core of every one of his films really is, like, he's actually trying to tell his own story and package it in a certain way. And it's the difference between remixing something and just covering it, I guess.
Yeah, like, I think a really good example is there's a moment in this movie where a character is like clearly... There's a character in Kill Bill who's like a little girl, and she sees Uma Thurman murder the fuck out of her mum, and Uma Thurman's like, hey, I'm gonna do a little cheeky, setup for a third movie.
Takes on a whole new meaning.
Why don't you come and fucking come and kill me, you know, when you're old enough. And it's kind of like, oh, he's kind of taken this element that I don't think... All right, well, I'm interested to see what you think. Because I don't think this element in Lady Snowblood works overly for me just because of how it comes in at the end, which might just be an era thing. Whereas she kills the drunk father. She kills the drunk father who's an absolute piece of shit. But the daughter then goes, I'm gonna have my blood-soaked revenge. I'm gonna come after our main Lady Snowblood character. But then just the way it kind of happens in the movie where Lady Snowblood is like already dead. She's already been cut up and she's going to fall down and die.
Well, she's been shot at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah. Sorry, that's right. But she's fucked. She's dying from her wounds. And then that chick just runs out of nowhere, out of the darkness, kind of like eyes stuck, like, hey, I'm just here for no reason. Stabs her and then just runs away. I like laughed out loud. I was like, that is so silly. Like she just is just there, appears. But it also just felt so like, this chick's already dead. She wasn't walking away from this battle. Like I felt like it was a twist, like a knife twist where it was like, she's already dead. You didn't need to do this revenge. But then I was like, I guess that's kind of the point of the film, though. Is like
vengeance breeds vengeance.
Yes, no. I like the idea. I think I like the idea of that. Like there was a point where you could sense that she was going to come after her, and I generally just think maybe the execution of her appearing out of nowhere, out of the darkness, just at the end of the fight felt just a bit. I don't know. It just hit me as comical for some reason. Whereas,
well, you had the two children of two of the villains, and they both, I guess, at a point, the reality of the situation that occurred, 20 years before became so kind of, confronting for these characters. The choice became, I'm either going to kill her or I'm going to kill the people that she wants to kill.
Sure. And
I can see what they're going for, and I get what you're saying, that it does kind of come out of nowhere. But, I mean, she was... I don't remember where she was shot exactly, but I don't know. She was definitely going to die. And then the end of the movie suggests that she gets back up.
The end of the movie implies, in my opinion, 100%, she survives the incident. So, I mean, to be honest, it makes the second revenge characters
like kind of even more, yeah.
Just a piece of shit. Like, I don't know, that whole character I felt like was like, when you compare it to the male son, where at the end he's like, I was the son of the worst man ever. And it's like, all right, cool. It's like a nice duality and, opposing ways that as kids you can kind of come at this when you find your parents a bloody piece of shit. I just think that hers was so like, I don't know. It's like she whores herself for money to support his drinking problem. I just think that her turning and being like, well, I'll kill the person that killed him is like, why? She's freed you from this life of being a whore. Like, what the fuck? Her motivation doesn't seem correct.
But I think that's, I think she realizes at a point that the girl is for some reason loyal to her father. She says, if you ever need to get away, you can find me if you go here. And then the girl says, why would I ever want to leave my father? So it just, I don't know, I guess what they were trying to do was paint the picture that, there's one child that's kind of estranged, and then even though they're all
the terrible, other one is too tightly close connected to her father. And I just think the way they set it up with this long, slow scene of her, like, I mean, I guess, I don't know, it was something about the way she was doing the baskets, then there's a long scene of her throwing the baskets, and then it's like, it all kind of gets unraveled within like 5-10 minutes, but it's just kind of like this whole thing where I was like, okay, I see what you're setting up. And then they kind of did the opposite where I was like, okay, I mean, I'll have to accept that this is her motivation and this is what she's decided. I guess I just disagree with her where I'm like, what are you doing here, chick? Like, you should be looking at which is not to say it's bad writing. I'm just saying that
The film slows right down at that point in time, which I think,
I really like that bit.
The first kind of chapter, there's 4 chapters, I think, or maybe, the first chapter kind of is really kind of succinct and punchy and edited together very like succinctly, and you've got all these different things happening and you're getting thrown information and it's kind of non-linear and you don't, you're trying to piece it all together, and then it kind of slows down during the second chapter. And
with the first kill kind of thing where she goes to get the guy.
Yeah, I gotta really say though that this movie, like we talked, I think last podcast about, you know, like a movie, movies at their fundamental level kind of trap you or engage you in their illusion, the illusion of the world or the characters or
trick you into buying into the universe or something.
I think I was, I think with this one I was, you know, sometimes I watch a movie and I'm thinking about it from the angle of the podcast, and then sometimes it just, something grabs me and its tone is just so what I was looking for, in what my expectations were, that I think the whole thing really just took me by surprise, and I might be feeling a bit soft on it all because I was just so excited, like, you know, the illusion worked of cinema again. And like,
oh yeah,
I think
I see what you're saying.
The movie, when the music kicks in at the start, like the cinematography,
and just the umbrella, and you're above the umbrella, like looking down, just walking.
The movie is like a good length, and
it's
perfect. It doesn't overstay its
like,
welcome. And,
all movies should be 95 minutes.
I had like 3 legitimate moments of excitement. There is a moment in this movie where an umbrella flies through the air, kind of glides down, and I was so excited. I could not believe it. It reminded me of the excitement of when I watched Kill Bill for the first time. Exactly, he captured that again, and then I got to have that moment again because it's different enough from Kill Bill that
it's quite different.
You reach a point in the movie where you kind of you're like, oh wow, this is really very different, and there's a lot of similarities, a lot of overlap, sure. And if it's just words on paper, you would think they're very similar just by...
I agree with you. But like, if it's just script and like just written down, it probably is a lot like essentially all revenge things. Whether it's non-linear, linear, or however you get it, it's usually a family or a person or a group, you know, something horrific has happened. And then someone rises, crawls out of that blood-soaked mayhem and then exacts revenge on the people that have done it. It's the same as a lot of revenge films I've seen. What I thought was particularly interesting is the way the movement, he didn't even copy necessarily, because I actually rewatched the final fight of Kill Bill with Lucy Liu just before we recorded today, or before we started talking a couple of hours ago, because I was just curious, because the movie's ingrained in my brain. Kill Bill is one of those movies that just is. I've watched it 100 times. So I just wanted to see if I was correct. And I think I am. It's just the way, you know, like that stillness. And it's the stillness that Kurosawa used really well. I mean, only from the 2 films I saw that we talked about last week. But that beautiful stillness, that moment they have, and then it's whoosh, and then it's just done. It like... So much of the fighting, like at the start when like, there's 2 guys or 3 or 4 guys up against her, and he goes at her, and that first swing she does, arm is off, and he's screaming, and it's that kind of that silence, that motion, and then the horrific blood kind of comes after a second. The amount of times someone gets cut in this movie, and they go hold their chest, and then there's that perfect amount of beat, that pause, and then. What I really got when I was watching it was that this movie, I'm sure there's a fuck ton of others because Tarantino literally has watched every movie, but this movie in particular, I think, has got the perfect amount of... I'm just trying to figure out how I'm going to say it. It's just the stillness, the action, and then the horrific gore after. Tarantino has been able to take to an extreme where I can just think about any of his films. And it's not even Kill Bill and stuff. But like, there's a scene in Django where one of the characters has a gun and they've got a big like sniper kind of gun. And there's a stillness, a moment where he's looking at this guy on a horse. The guy's on a horse riding in the distance, and there's a bit of motion, but the stillness of the gun. And then whoosh, the gun shoots, the guy gets hit, and then we just have these flowers, and then blood just perfectly splatters over all these flowers. And it's the same in essentially every moment of Kill Bill that has these things, but it's just that beautiful balance of how the action sets itself up, then the really quick nature of the fight. And you almost don't see the cuts a lot of the time. It's so quick.
Yeah.
Like that bit where she chops off the guy's hands. And
Oh.
She just cuts. And then the hands are just flying. And they're just... And it's exactly the way like in Kill Bill, he cuts the head. And then you just see the motion of the sword. And then you just see the hat of hair of Lucy Liu just flying. And then it hits the sand with that... And it just... I don't know. It's such an incredible way of filmmaking that... I wish I'd written down the director's name, but I actually completely forgot to. But whoever directed this movie, they fucking knew what they were doing. And Tarantino saw that. And he's able to take it where... I don't know, rewatching this movie made me realize that Kill Bill is probably my favorite Tarantino. That or Django Unchained. But it's so like... I don't know, like there's a moment in this movie where she looks and she sees it's the drunk guy. And it's like she knows he's the target. And she's just looking at him. And there's this stillness and this moment. And I was just looking at it and I'm like, I feel like I can see Tarantino watching this movie. But in his head, he's going... Bam! To happen?
I was waiting for it to kick in. Honestly,
I actually thought it was going to happen. Yeah.
You read my mind. Yeah.
And I don't know. I feel like we probably mention it all the time, but I feel like last week I mentioned something about Tarantino's homaging. And I think I didn't say it in the most negative light, but...
He's homaging all over the place.
He truly is such a good filmmaker, though. Because I don't think... because I feel like if I watched this when I was a kid, it would look the way that all my Lord of the Rings-esque movies do when I was 15, and I made them after Lord of the Rings, where you're like, yeah, there's a lot of passion and this and that, but it's also very much me going, I'm doing a Lord of the Rings thing here. Whereas watching this movie, it's interesting to see the things he's taken, but I also don't feel like he stole anything. Like, I kind of had a chuckle when the first chapter appeared, and I'm like, of course this has chapters.
Yeah.
Like, the way all Tarantino's movies kind of chaptered like a book. But I think the big difference for me in this movie, of it being like him essentially taking ideas and feelings more than anything, is that the plot itself is she's got to kill 4 people. And then it almost immediately is like, oh, no, it's not about... it is that, but it's like she finds out that the main leader is dead. And I was like, oh, I actually kind of wish he stayed dead. But I don't know. I don't know how I feel because I really liked that. Like when that happened, I was like, what the fuck? Like,
but I think they also do a brilliant thing by having the other woman kill herself and kind of rob her of that kill. Which took me by surprise in that moment too.
Yes, that was so weird.
And when she cut her in half, I thought that's probably what I would have done too, just to be sure, because these people are pretty sneaky. I mean, make sure and cut her in half. That honestly made me really, as a member of the audience, I was like very happy that you made the decision. You had to go and do that effect, and you could have ended the scene with her just hanging, and the audience would have got it that she killed herself, but... I like that extra touch of her just cutting her in half just to be sure.
Oh, that was
my favorite
bit in the whole movie because it's like,
and then you just see the blood run out. It
looks so good, man. It looks, I don't know, as a fan of gore and that kind of stuff, I feel like every day I get less and less a fan of violence, and then I watch a movie like this, and I'm like, this is why I like seeing blood on screen. It can be so bizarrely affecting and emotional. Like seeing her get chopped in half with such ease is fucking scary, man. That fucking freaked me out. Imagine fake hanging yourself and then someone chops you in half. Sorry to keep cutting you off. I don't know, that made me laugh so much.
I just wanted to hang on to this thought because you mentioned something about, kind of looking up at the 4 faces to get, to seek, revenge upon. And I just thought it was interesting how that shot really directly mirrors the bride's point of view.
There's sometimes it's very obvious the homage there. Yeah. That one shot where all 4 of them are looking down after they... Also, that scene where they're like... also, there's a flashback moment. And this is early on in the movie when I'm like...
This movie.
Oh, it's so good. At the start of this movie, the flashback scene where it's like, this is what's going on with the history to explain why they'd be killing white people who are dressed white in white garb.
Yeah.
that flashback to me is essentially the 70s version of an anime scene. Like now,
Yeah,
like
the Kill
it's
Bill,
like painted.
yeah.
And in Kill Bill, and I'm like, and it's just funny because I know in Kill Bill, the only reason, I mean, apparently, I could be wrong, but as far as I'm aware, the only reason that's anime is because he couldn't figure out a way to put so much blood on screen the way he wanted. Like the blood, you know, there was so much carnage and so much style that he's like, oh, okay, you know what? Let's do it anime. I mean, I could be paraphrasing or just be wrong entirely. But that was what I was aware. But then I was watching this and I'm like, I feel like maybe he just wanted to put more references to this movie.
Yeah.
Because it was just like, it's got to be an animated flashback. And like,
It
you know,
actually
like
really
drawing.
made watching this movie really, really, really made me appreciate how genuinely talented, and this feels like a ridiculous thing to say because it just goes without saying, but Tarantino is such a terrific filmmaker, and the fact that he was able to bring me this movie repackaged to Western sensibilities, but still taking all of the sensibilities of, you know, that era of filmmaking and that type of movie and, you know, just introducing it to a Western audience, but not robbing us of the experience of going back and watching it and getting a whole new different bunch of things out of that too. You know, it's the real difference, like what Kill Bill Volume 1 is to Lady Snowblood, you know, The Force Awakens is to A New Hope. In that it's a filmmaker of another era remaking something using the sensibilities of an era, you know, foregone and retelling it and remixing it. And, you know, the difference is one's a sequel and this one is just completely its own thing. But in the same way that Star Wars was that to The Hidden Fortress and Seven Samurai and took all of those elements and people are constantly remixing and recycling, but it really does show me the difference between a J.J. Abrams Force Awakens, which leans so heavily on just taking things and not doing the hard work and heavy lifting required. And it is successful at some things, but, you know, Quentin Tarantino is infinitely more successful as a filmmaker in
he's
taking...
the greatest remix artist. Like,
but making it its own and really... You don't feel cheated out of...
No. When this movie started, I wasn't like, oh, I'm just going to watch Kill Bill. It was like, oh my God, I can't wait to watch something that inspired something as good as Kill Bill.
Yeah.
Like...
I kept waiting for it to be ruined by my knowledge of Kill Bill, and it just didn't. It just kept surprising me.
Honestly, Kill Bill almost made all the twists and turns in the last half of the movie incredible. Like, when the lead, like, chief warrior was just... She's looking at the grave and he's dead. I was like, what the fuck? Bill's not dead. Like, what the fuck is this? Like, you know what I mean? I was like, but this doesn't happen in Kill Bill. Or it wasn't, you know. But it's like that, though, in a way, because it's kind of like, you do... Because honestly, I just expected she'd kill all four people. That's all I'd see. So halfway through, I was like, I'm going to love this movie because it's so good. But I already know what I'm going to see. And then almost every scene, I was like...
What?
Like the bit where the guy who turns out to be the son, before we find out the son, he's like, I'm a bloody writer. I'm like, what do you mean you're a writer? I thought you were just going to be the son. And that's why you're at the grave. Like, you're a writer? And he's like, writes the whole story. And I'm like, what is happening right now? And he's like, this will be a good way to get like her to like come out of the woodwork. I'm like, oh, what is this?
But there's also a scene earlier where he talks to the daughter of the other guy and says, I know what you're going through. So they tease it early in the film. He does!
And I was like, you fucking don't, bro. She's gone through shit. Oh my, I literally remember thinking, this guy lying to her, He's like, but I do understand. I'm like, fucking stop lying to her, dude.
But he was trying
that's such a good... I love it.
This is what happens with... I mean, they all ultimately go down the path of vengeance. It's just which direction it takes them, you know? And that's what I liked about it. Even though it is kind of, you know, at the end, the stab right there at the end is just kind of the final nail in the coffin. Except it isn't. The execution, so I guess
that's the point, I guess.
For sure. But what I'm more getting at is that, you know, the son, the artist, the storyteller, he chose to take those, you know, take that vengeance and try and do something productive with it and try and help her. And then when the father comes out of the woodwork too, really follows through. And I just thought, it was just a good way to show how both ways that it can go. And people are wrong often, and people are corrupt, and this movie does deal with that quite a lot. That you see the four characters that wrong, this family and do all this horrific shit. One of them dies at the hands of the mother before going to prison, which is then how she births her child, who is the protagonist.
That is such a brutal reveal where she's like, I was just having sex with everyone to make sure I got pregnant. It's like, she's like, but the moment where she's like, you all think I'm the fucking like a big old slut, but I'm doing this for vengeance. I was like,
that's all. But she gets vengeance on one of them,
awful though.
Which is, kind of the one that keeps her and tortures her. He kind of gets he gets vengeance done early, but then it's kind of bred down to the next generation, which is a really good and true metaphor, I believe, that you can really impart very negative things onto your children very easily and without, the intent a lot of the time.
Yeah, this is like the most extreme example of essentially all parenting, where she, like, the baby is born and she's like, you're born of vengeance, motherfucker. Like, you were only born. The only reason I made sure you were born is to fucking kill these cunts. That's it. I don't want you to do anything else. I don't care who you are. I don't care about your feelings or anything. This is how it's going to fucking be. How she implemented that once she died, though, it's like, I guess everyone else in the prison's like, we're on board with this shit. This completely fucked thing.
But I like that one of the bad guys, becomes a complete failure drunk, supported by his daughter. One of them is kind of in the middle, it has a kind of private police force, essentially. And then one of them has truly become, almost the metaphorical, or I should say, the personification of the introduction of, like, Western influence into Japan in a weird way, which I found interesting, that it was at a party where all of these Western people were interacting, and it was the old Japanese men with the women, and then lots of white men with the Japanese girls, and everyone was kind of mixed together in a weird way, and the two flags, and him as he died, pulling down the Japanese flag. I thought didn't he? Yeah, there's really.
I didn't pick up on that. That's so good.
And that's kind of maybe. I don't know what the kind of metaphor is at the core here, but I know there's a lot to chew on, and I really want to rewatch this and really, like, look into the history of it. I think maybe it's clearly just the American flag stays there, so I guess there's the obvious, what that's alluding to.
That's interesting. None of that. I was too caught up with guns and blood and, I was just, like, wrapped up in
just the fact that he's behind a mirror and, he's this elusive character and he's faked his own death and he's become, kind of supremely powerful. And I think he stood for something else, some larger idea that is historically significant, or maybe even it was, modern to the 70s at the time. It could be an allusion to something going on then too, which is why I don't want to claim I know what it all is, because there's more going on than I think you see.
That's really cool. I like that with that mirror thing, because actually the moment with the mirror, I just distinctly remember they smashed the mirror and he's, like, not in frame, and then he, like, pokes his head out into the frame and then disappears again, and once again I just burst out into laughter. I was just like, what the fuck?
That was executed very strangely.
I was like, just a time thing, it's just aged bizarrely. Sometimes things hit me and I'm just like,
no, that was
but funny. Then I'm like, I remember part of me was like, it could have just meant to be a little bit of, levity. When the gun gets brought out, I was just like, oh, that's not fair. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's
I felt that
this
in
samurai
every
lady
single Kurosawa movie as well. Every time someone brought a gun out in that movie,
oh my god, that's the same thing at the end where he shoots the guys.
Yeah, in my head, I always think, no, this is ultimately the undoing of the samurai. So that's why you see it rear its head so much.
It makes me feel like it's the undoing of. So I don't know. I don't know enough about history or anything, but I just feel like when you see people fighting with swords and stuff, there's this, like, thing about it, and it's real fucked up. But when you see someone just shoot someone, you're like, that's not fair. You didn't. Okay, you know what it
You
is.
didn't work hard. You didn't work your whole childhood to...
Yes, you did. You didn't get thrown down a goddamn cliff in a barrel.
Oh my
and then
God.
the moment where she does the flip and it's like, and does that sound effect and she flips and lands, the little child actress does this look. And it's the greatest fuck yeah, I just did that look in any movie. It's just so good. That whole bit I thought was so fucking awesome. Because like in Kill Bill, she's got a pretty iconic kind of training montage of the brick, and she's trying to punch through the brick, like the 1-inch brick punch, which comes back to the coffin moment. So that's, to me, that's quite ingrained.
Or is it
in
wood?
my...
Is it like a
Yeah, it is wood. What did I say? Sorry?
Brick.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, it's a plank of wood, and then with the coffin, and she smashes through it in the end, and it's and that always stays in my mind. It's a very great moment. It reminds me of this Batman comic I read. I think it's in Hush, but it could be in something else. And Batman's in a coffin, and then at one point he breaks out of the coffin, and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure the dialogue, if I remember correctly, is something like, "'Cause I'm Batman." He's like, "How'd I get out of this prison coffin in the ground? 'Cause I'm Batman." And I'm just like, this is beyond good. It's the greatest moment of my life. And it's Kill Bill's got that amazing moment. But so I don't know. These flashbacks of the child training, I thought were very, very good. I particularly like the barrel rolling down. That was just, I don't know, it's just weird. Like, it's just a weird thing where he's just pushing her down this thing in like a barrel, like she's Donkey Kong. And like, he's like, you got to jump out at the perfect moment. It was just so, I don't know. I love the flip effect as well in this movie.
Yeah.
There was a bit where she like ran across the top of somewhere, jumped on a chandelier and swung across. And I was
At the end,
and I was like, I don't want to replay it in case I catch how they did it. But I was just like, I could have been caught up in the moment, but I was like, it just felt like she just did it. Like they shot it from above, but it just felt like she just ran across. And I'm like, I feel like maybe because the angle was like a bit weird. When you get an angle, you're like, that's not like exactly the angle maybe I would have picked. So maybe they've picked it for a reason. I was like, maybe there's like a bunch of shit under the ground that if she fell, she'd be safe. But it just looked like such a wild stunt where I'm like, what the fuck? Did she risk her life to do that? Because it's the 70s. And every time you hear anything from that time, you're like, what the fuck? Why were they allowed to do that? and usually it's like, well, they just did it. It wasn't whether they were allowed to or not. They just went, let's just crash these cars. Who cares? Hopefully no one dies. Just fucking insane shit,
Let's point out the star of the film, Meiko Kaji is her name.
Oh, so is that the main actress?
Yep. And
yes, she fucking rules.
I don't know if she was doing
so
all the stunt work here, but if she wasn't, they sold me on it.
No, yeah,
100%.
it felt like she did, man.
She also sang the song, The Flower of Carnage, the amazing piece of music, beautifully sung by the star of the movie.
So she's a music artist as well, then.
Yes, she's appeared in many films. I think she's done a lot of singing with the films. But she did the Will Smith rap equivalent of 1970s Japanese. She did her own song for a movie, and it's the best song ever.
Yeah, it is so good.
It's called The Flower of Carnage, which is aptly titled, like all the wonderful chapters in this movie.
The chapters, I was going to write them down, but I
don't even know what they were. It was like the autumn of blood-soaked leaves and shit like that.
There was one called like The Umbrella Opens and Darkness Surrounds the Flower of Doom, or just insane shit where I was like, oh fuck yes. What I said then sounds shit, but it was beautiful. It's like Flower of Carnage. No, it's beauty. It's a great mix of violence and beauty. Like there was one about an umbrella, and I was like, that is tight. I like it. As well, I just love that the titles felt very much like...
It kind of felt like a name generator thing, where you could put a bunch of different things in and get some... like, you got to put a season... Poetry. And then you got to put a horrific thing, and then you got to put a colour, and then you got to put a... Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, like metaphor. The blue stone shimmers in the darkness or whatever. Yeah, you're going to mix it around a bit.
In the winter of...
yeah.
I love the sensibilities of this movie. And I think, everything they inspire in Kill Bill it's amazing that it's a weird circular thing for me now where I'm like, do I enjoy this movie more because Kill Bill hit me at such an influential period of my development? You know, like when you watch a movie when you're 14, it's inevitably like what you're watching at that period of time is going to be incredibly, it's going to stay with you for the rest of your life. So like watch the best stuff when you're a teenager. If you're a teenager listening, watch all the best stuff now, because then you get a really good taste in the future. Like, I didn't do that with music. I am illiterate with music. I get all my music from like movies and TV shows that I watch, and I form connections with music through films and things I love, and any of my music knowledge is directly related to that. And I kind of like trash music. Like the way I feel about people who like terrible movies and who I tend to disagree with, I recognize that I myself am that person with music. I like, generally what's just on the charts.
Because it's always so good!
Yeah, but you can recognize that it has low lyrical value. The content of the lyrics is not particularly... You can see the commodification of pop music just like you can see it of movies.
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah. But sometimes you just want to chuck on Immortal Engines, or the movie music equivalent.
See, I find that I will agree with you with music. I do, because I think I didn't develop those tastes. So it's almost like when you don't develop your taste for coffee.
Instant coffee is fine, yeah. It's not!
No, I know so many people who don't actually like coffee. They like sugar and they put chocolate in it and they put... essentially, they're just covering it with sweetness. And if they drank a real coffee, they would spit it in the sink,
have an espresso from Italy and they'll be like, I'd rather die, my friend.
And I'm not gatekeeping coffee. I'm just saying if you just not even...
It's a tolerance thing.
No, it's not even an espresso in Italy. It's like, even if you just have a normal coffee with a bit of milk, but you take all the sugar and chocolate and shit out, people won't even tolerate that. It's not even an instant thing. It's like some people...
Orange juice without all the trash in it. I don't want that.
Yeah. And I mean, like whatever you like, who cares? Everyone has opinions about stuff. I love talking to people with opinions that are the same as mine, and with people who have opinions that are different from mine. And I find that no matter what people's interests are, what they disagree with you about, they generally have pretty good reasons for some of the stuff. And when you can find those reasons out, I love finding out why someone hates something. And I love finding out why someone loves something. And sometimes you can make such a good point that it sticks with you for a long time. And sometimes you can so fundamentally disagree with why someone loves or hates something that you're like, I don't know if this is a bridge we can get. Like if someone said, I hate Lady Snowblood, I'd be like, I just don't understand what you want from a movie, because this really ticked a lot of boxes.
All the boxes.
One thing I did notice about the filmmaking, which on kind of face value when I first noticed it seemed like you would call it a mistake or a technical flaw, which turned out to be quite an effective filmmaking tool. And I thought it was interesting how they overexposed a lot of the whites in the movie and actually allowed the camera to blow the whites out, which is what happens is when you expose an image with a camera, you can expose for the highlights or you can expose for the shadows, and you'll get a very different image depending on what you expose for. So if you want to focus on the blueness of the sky, and there's a tree in shadow, the tree will be very dark and the sky will be in focus. And if you want the part of the tree that's in shadow to be bright, then you'll probably blow the background out. And they were intentionally dressing characters in white and putting them in shadowy situations, and really allowing the whites to kind of be blown out. And initially I thought, is that an error? But it kept being done, and the more I saw it, the more I realized, no, they're actually using it to frame this character in a certain way with all of these other people to really contrast the situation. And then when we get the proper flashback of the family, and they're all in white and it's all really bright, and then the real contrast of the blood running through the overexposed white onto the ground, and like technically that image you should have exposed a little bit less, but you would have significantly lessened the impact of how striking the blood was in contrast to the scene if you'd actually followed the technical procedure there.
All right, so I'm gonna admit, as someone who went to film school, didn't pay attention, hate all that stuff, and as someone who loves, not even writing, but I love like crafting the story and like the shots and all the things. But I think the fundamental difference between us is like I did not notice that. But you know what I did? Like I didn't notice it at all. Like I'll sometimes be like, oh, is that overexposed or underexposed? Like I understand that thing. Didn't notice in this movie. But do you know what I bloody did notice, Kieran? How goddamn white everything was, and how incredible the blood contrast was. They pop so good. This movie made me remember why when I was 18, I'd get into arguments with teachers being like, there has to be this amount of blood, it has to be this red, and screaming about like the contrast of a blue sky, green grass, blood splattered on it, and just all these things where I'm like, this movie is so effective in showing the blood. It is, like for instance, in Kurosawa's movie, I love the scene where they're standing off against each other and it's one swing, whoosh, and then the bad guy just slowly drops. No blood. Doesn't need blood. I don't need blood anymore. I'm not that blood-soaked guy. But this movie makes me go, blood can be good. It can be very, very effective.
The blood is an evolution of that genre, where in Kurosawa's time they weren't doing it, and now the later filmmakers are adopting it more. It's interesting that the director of this movie, I did a very small amount of reading, but he was more well known for teenage movies or kids movies or something like that.
As in like a super bad or
that I don't know. I'll just double check now while I'm talking about it. But these movies were out of character for him, essentially.
Oh wow! So this guy's essentially the greatest.
So he's just more well known for a particular. His name is Toshiya Fujita.
What? That's such a good name.
Yeah, and so he's well regarded in Japan for his youth films. It says youth films. I don't know what that is.
God, that sounds like he made a bunch of fucking like educational films for schools to show.
But is best known abroad for Lady Snowblood and Lady Snowblood 2: Love Song of Vengeance.
Yeah, I did actually see that was a film.
I wonder if it's good. It can't be. It can't be as good.
Isn't it weird how my brain just says no? Actually, you know what's funny? You know how before we were recording, we were talking about I can't remember what we were talking about, but it was something to do with how the classic Dark Knight thing. Everything's shit unless it dies. It was just essentially what he says in that movie. That should be the line. Everyone becomes shit unless you die young. Because essentially it was something to do with all horror movies, that start... Oh, we were talking about Rambo and Rocky, and the first movie's great, and they slowly become more ridiculous and silly. To a lesser extent to those of, like, the horror franchises of, like, your Freddys and your Jasons and blah, 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 blah. But, like, say, Rambo, where the first movie is just a really good movie, a really, really good movie about, like, post-traumatic stress from war and not wanting to fight, all these things. And then like Rambo 3 is like, how many people can I murder in one shot? He just kills hundreds of people with a machete or a machine gun or whatever the fuck, and it just kind of completely changes what it is as it goes on. And I think that trait in movies makes me think something like this movie, if this has a sequel, it's a piece of shit. And it's everything bad about the type of movies there should be.
The director came back, the lead came back, I believe the support,
Oh, no, I'm not saying that it might... I mean, I don't know, it's just fascinating that I would immediately go, I don't want
to watch it. Sequels,
I'd rather watch another movie.
If the director changes and most of the cast do, that's when the warning signs come up, but it was just two and done. So it's possible the second one was bad.
Two and done is very different. Two and done is very different to if this was Lady Snowblood 3... Snow Strikes Back or whatever, There's a scene in this movie, Lady Snowblood, and she's like, I've caught you, villainous bad guy. And he's like, wow, I'm coming at you. And then she goes, fuck you, chops his goddamn hands off. And then they both look over the body, and then there's this weird pause where I'm like, what? And I was missing something. And I was looking at the screen, but I was like, I've missed something. Something's going on. And then she starts pulling up the beard. And I'm like, oh, fuck, he's wearing like a fake beard. And I hadn't noticed that. Pulls off the fake beard. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. It's a younger man with a fake beard. No, it's fucking not. It's a character from Mission Impossible. I don't understand, Keiran. I don't understand, Keiran.
I love how it cuts.
Why?
It's a real guy's face, and then it cuts back, and it's the worst mask.
The worst mask ever. But not even that. I failed to understand if this movie was trying to seriously say that someone could wear a mask like they're fucking Arya Stark from Game of Thrones with a fucking mask. That goddamn convincing.
That was the actor, yeah. It was just him.
It was definitely the actor. And then it wasn't the actor suddenly for no reason. And all I thought was, you had done enough with me to do the fake beard. Because I was like, I believe fake beards existed in 1850. I fucking don't believe Mission Impossible level fucking magic masks of impossibility that I shrug off in that movie because it's like a fun spy movie where they just have fun spy gadgets and it's meant to be fun and stupid, but they can't possibly have had that technology back then to make a mask, right? That's fucking ridiculous.
Of course. But
okay, all right. Okay, I could be wrong. I could be wrong. That mask thing could be like, we invented the wheel and immediately after masks, I don't know.
I thought this film lost me.
When that happens?
Not just, it was then, and then it was the preceding fight on the balcony above the party. And then, but when she was back out in the snow and everything had kind of happened and the music kicked back in, I really just went, no, this was a fucking great ride and a fantastic film. And I got so much out of this. And really, if I have a complaint, which I have absolutely no right or expertise to voice, but if I had to force a complaint, it would just be that the film kept building more and more, and my excitement kept getting more and more, and it would only be that the climactic fight with the guy, I thought there might be more to it. I thought it was going to get really bigger. And I wasn't let down when it wasn't. It was more so, I think the pace of the fighting slowed down a little bit too much, and a little bit more of the sensibilities of the time crept in, where it was someone struggling for a gun a bit too long. And it's only because the rest of the film is so good that I'm going to criticize it here, because it really had sustained such a high level of action up until that point that it did take me out of the movie a little bit. And I wouldn't mention it if, because like there's elements of Seven Samurai where you just kind of accept that, we're looking at something so far back in time that modern filmmaking tools were just not even available. So you can't... No,
the fact that you can even watch that movie for 5 minutes.
Yes. No. But here I think it's warranted only because the film has proven the rest of the time it can do everything so short, sharp, succinct, fantastic. And I think much like some of my other favorite films on here, where I say if you cut it just a little bit more out, you have something infinitely more perfect. Maybe here too, I would. But
see, I don't.
No, maybe, but I won't. I won't say something so bold.
No. I mean, fuck that shit. We watched the movie. You got thoughts. Who cares? But I don't know, because like something being super aged, like the Seven Samurai. There's definitely one, maybe two shots or scenes where they're like just swinging samurai swords around, and it's like. It's like Attack of the Clones final fight scene where it's like there's a lot of lightsabers and there's not a lot of finesse. They are your words. I don't hold them into my heart. There's something you've said that I think it is true. I don't give a shit in that scene, but it's like in Seven Samurai there's like just like not enough though for me to care, and it was even less when I rewatched it this time when you did it for the pod. But there is a bit of and it's a bit whatever, not choreographed cleverly. And when the rest of the film is expertly done, like just fucking to perfection. Like the first scene where they meet the super warrior in Seven Samurai is too good. It's so perfect that every other scene, if it's not perfect, well then I'm gonna be like, that was weird. It you know, because
Yep,
the other
yep.
bit was perfect. And this movie's first fucking scene is out of control. It's on fire. I don't know what to say. It's so fucking good. She kills like 3 guys and then kills the bad guy, and it's just so
With an
good.
umbrella sword. I can't tell
Yes.
you.
Oh, we haven't
as
talked about
soon
this.
as I
It's so
saw
cool
that,
when she whipped that out. Yeah, I was like, oh my god.
I don't know. I was so in for the character. I thought they did such a good job of establishing it quickly and getting me on for the ride that ensued. And
Yeah, it got rid of all the fluff in a way where she rocks up and she's like the first scene is in a way it's like you know, so many first scenes. It's like in Endgame where bloody Hawkeye rocks up. He's like, "Why are you doing this?" He's like, "I'm doing this because of this." Then kills the main bad guy, and you're like, "All right, intro scene. I got it." And in this, she murders the fuck out of those guys, and he's like, "Why are you doing this, you crazy woman? Who are you?" And she's like, "Revenge." And it's like, we got it. He's like, "Who are you?" Lady Snowblood. Also, Lady Snowblood. Come on, the greatest name ever. Like, when you sent me the message and the name and all the things, I was like, yeah, cool. But I've been in such a Doctor Who thing that I kind of threw it to the side until I got to it.
Because I've been in a very deep Sopranos hole.
Oh my god, where are you up to?
I'm getting towards the end of season 4.
Nice, you're watching 2 seasons a week.
Oh, don't tell me that. Yeah, it's been 2.
Well, I think you said you were up to the end of season 2 last week. Yeah.
I just didn't want you to do the math because I haven't done it. And I have deep shame. Deep.
No, that's so good. The binge is real.
But this was. I went to a fancy restaurant one time with my girlfriend, and they
Nice.
they gave us There's a point to this. They gave us a really like strong, outstanding first meal, and then. I was blown away. I'm like, nothing can be better than this. And then what they dropped was just like this little. It was a spoon with just like a small scoop of ice cream on it, like gelato. Mm-hmm. And I ate it, and it was the like freshest, cleanest, like fruity. I can't even remember what the flavor was. All I remember was just like it was the most refreshing, true palate cleanser I've ever had. After awesome. Eating something so kind of strong and rich and then having something so light and, I don't know, just melted in my mouth and my palate was truly refreshed. And after watching 4 seasons of The Sopranos over such a short period of time, Lady Snowblood was that palate refresher that I had. It was like truly like just consuming it was pure delight. I enjoyed the whole ride, and any qualms I've raised are so minor. I really am looking forward to watching this movie again. I think there's more to be mined from it, which I haven't really felt about a movie like this in a while. You know, generally like a good action revenge kind of flick like this, especially from another era. I've never wanted more to jump back in and rewatch it, and I think I might give the sequel a go. Because it's the same director and actress coming back, and it doesn't look. Only did a very quick Google, but it's not universally hated or panned. So you know, if I can get a little bit more of this and it's not as good, I'm okay with that. And my expectations are really quite low, so hopefully anything is good.
So let me put this to you. What would be a sequel? Because what I feel like, you know, for years and years, I was like, TV shows are the greatest thing. It's such a long format to slowly evolve the character. But, you know, every day I get older and every day I have to go to fucking work. And I don't have time. And I feel like I appreciate movies like this that are 90 minutes and they're like, here's what's going on. Here's the movie. And then after a bit, it's done. And I'm like, fuck yeah. You know, and even if the movie ends and she's like, she's dying, bled out, and I'm looking at what I think is a corpse. And in this movie, she literally like raises from the dead, like covered in blood. Like I'm ready to go for round 2, but it's like, round 2 for what? You fucking killed everyone. Like your story's over.
Well,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I guess part of me is like, well, it doesn't sound like the story needs to be told. So wouldn't it just? I don't know. I don't know. And I'm interested now too, because like, what if it's, you know, the same movie, lesser story, but crazier action? What if it's Kill Bill 2? We don't know.
Yeah. Well,
she meets another guy and he's like, let's have a story about superheroes. I'm Batman or whatever the fuck Bill does in it.
I guess what do all the best sequels do? They I guess turn introspective, and there was a
depends on what kind of movie it is though. I feel like certain movies want a different sequel, you know.
There was a plot element introduced in this movie that they did not reconcile that I found quite interesting, and it's a question posed by the writer of the story. He says, "What does someone like this who is just bred for vengeance do after they've got it?"
Oh, I love it. No. If that's literal, no.
He says that
didn't even need to be in the movie, but if that's in the movie, that's literally, that phrase is what's the best part about Avatar's sequel series, Korra. It's like, what does a legendary hero do? What does Harry Potter do with no Voldemort, you know? Which is the most interesting story. If you're the chosen one and there's a chosen enemy, what the fuck is your story after that chosen enemy is obviously defeated because they're the bad guy?
So what is Lady Snowblood's story?
Oh my god, it could be. I love it. I'm back on board. I'm gonna watch it this week too. That sounds awesome. Not that even is necessarily what it's gonna be, but they can't just have it be formal rapist because that is literally like, you know, she killed everyone. Like there's, you know, and people were even like, maybe she was hung, but no, her body was cut in half. You know, there's no getting around it for a sequel.
Well, what are the best? What I was getting at before, the best sequels I think turn introspective, like Godfather Part 2 and Empire Strikes Back, both turn like the father element and really like you know, you're following protagonist and father like side by side, and as revelations are made about the story kind of, you know, being on a kind of repeating cycle, and and I think I don't know, is that they've already kind of done that with this story, so I don't know what you do. It's because they've done so much in this first story. There's so many of these themes being kind of reflected on and played with that maybe it's, you know, whereas like, you know, the first Star Wars film is kind of not even the classic hero's journey, just the first part of it. Yeah. You know, it's almost just the first victory, and then the crushing loss is still to come before the final victory.
Which is it's kind of weird how Star Wars is like, I don't know, it's so weird that Luke and Vader don't fight in that first one. You know, that like
they don't meet, they don't see. No,
it's so weird to think how like somehow in the script development. I was just thinking what you said then. I'm like, that's Star Wars 1, 2, 3, whereas that's a movie. That's just your movie, you know? Like, he destroys a Death Star, then Darth Vader's like, I'm going to come get you. He chops off his hand, and they have the final confrontation at the end. Like, you could have scripted this and been like, George Lucas, we need to, bloody Lucas boy, we need to do this and that, and crush it into a movie.
Yeah.
You could watch, like, I don't know, that's terrifying to think. Like, it's so good how it is. Because it's so classical, but it's so, like, it's got weird things that are wrong about it, you know? Like, not wrong, but it's like, yeah, they don't meet, you know? It's like the first Pirates of the Caribbean. It's like Barbossa and Jack just not meeting. It's like, that'd be weird, right? Like,
yeah.
I don't know. It's weird. It's just not classical for such a classical thing. I feel like my mind is just having a moment right now where I haven't thought about this for a while, and my brain's just going, oh my god.
It's why I love the scene in Return of the Jedi when Luke just turns himself into the Empire, and they get a scene before they go to the Emperor, and
and they're just chatting.
It's the only time they just talk, but they're aware of what's going on. No one's trying to manipulate them. Nothing's happening. It's just them in a room, and I don't know. And he looks at his lightsaber and he's like, wow, you built a light. You're like fucking almost a Jedi. Holy shit. Like,
it's just a dad and a son like talking about how cool their cars are or whatever, you know?
So the son's like, please stop being a genocidal maniac. And
he's like, I like this sweet killing weapon you made. Yeah.
Obi-Wan once thought as you do. It's too late for me, is that what he says? Oh.
Yeah, 100%.
Enough about that. I'm not allowed to mention Star Wars anymore. You have to ban me from mentioning it.
Sorry. Yeah.
I'll edit it all out unless I can't for the sake of the flow of the conversation. In which case, enjoy more rambling thoughts.
as you're talking about like stuff she can, develop or this or that in the sequel, I just feel like this movie, for a movie that's like, all right, it's a revenge flick. It's a bunch of people get murdered and she's like born out of blood and she's out to get them. It does such an interesting take of like, I really thought it was just going to be like kill, 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 kill. But like, I thought the drunk guy being drunk just immediately brought this weird, like he's such a pathetic nothing drunk where it's like, and the movie took such an effort
his life was
to
fucked
kind of look
anyway.
at him. Yeah, and that's the first thing that occurred to me where I'm like, the first thing that occurred to me was, I don't think another film about revenge, like I was thinking this other, I think it was a French film that I watched at Myth last year, which is the Melbourne International Film Festival. And there's a movie called Revenge, and it's just a revenge flick. It's like a chick goes and meets like 3 guys at this super expensive place out in the desert, and they just fucking torture and rape and just, it's awful. I can't remember what they do, but it's the worst shit, and it's an awful 10 minutes starts the movie. And then she gets thrown off a cliff and doesn't die. And the movie takes a weird turn for like a minute where she doesn't die and crawls out of this area and just like off a tree or something. And it's like, what the fuck? She should be dead. But then it's just, she's going to fucking kill him. And then that's it. She just kills all 3. Whereas this movie, it feels like it's the prototype to just do that type of, then she's just going to fucking kill them all. Like what Kill Bill does. She just fucking kills them all. Whereas this, it's like, even that movie where it's like, there's a pause where it's like, oh, the kid's home. But she's not like, hey, she has a kid, I won't kill her. In this movie, it's like, the drunk guy is so pathetic. It's like, immediately brings into question, this woman has wasted her entire 20 years of being alive to seek revenge on these oh shit, he's just a pathetic drunk who's probably going to die next week from his own doings anyway. Or him and being alive and in this miserable drunken state, forcing his daughter, who he doesn't even realize is doing this for him, to do all of these things, whoring herself and blah, blah, blah. And it all just, and it's like, it's not worth it. He didn't need to train for 20 years to kill him. And then the next person she thinks is dead, the next one hangs herself. And I don't know, man. It's like, what more can you kind of rinse out of this kind of revenge is just so obviously not worth it. And the revenge she does get on the one guy she kills, the drunk who she didn't need to kill, it means that she died. I mean, she didn't die, but it means that this other woman is now seeking revenge for her. And I feel like it does so much. Like every death is not just a kill. Like, I don't know. Maybe I've talked myself out. I don't know if I watch the sequel now. No, I'm back. No.
I think it's odd because
we're gonna have to watch it. I'm so interested now. Yeah. What is it?
The film is presented in such a romantic manner, but the fights have all the romanticism stripped right back and feel almost like not ultra realistic, but for a movie being presented the way it is, it's quick and it's brutal and
the samurai sword touches you, you pretty much die.
Yeah.
And if you
don't, she gets hit, and
yes, and it's a whole moment. She like looks at it and she's like, "Ow!" Like I don't know. There's an interesting moment where she gets attacked. I think it's in training, and she's suddenly like fully naked because the sword has hit her clothes but missed her body, and maybe she's got like a tiny bit of blood, but. I don't know. There was another moment where her clothes don't fully come off, but like not the jacket, like the shirt like comes off like half or something, and she's got a big blood streak, and it's kind of like, there's like 2 moments in the movie where the sword doesn't hit, and the characters are both like, oh my god, I almost just died, and the other person's like, I almost just fucking killed you, But every other time they die, whether it's being armed or beheaded or whatever, there's a real devastation. It's kind of. I don't know, maybe all samurai films have that same feeling of the weight of the sword, but the weight of the samurai sword is so like powerful in these. Yeah, it's kind of like the opposite of what you say with Attack of the Clones. It's like there's so much lightsaber swinging, but there's no feeling like any limbs will be cut off. It's all just and just nothing. And this has such power behind each swing. I feel like the fighting still is a bit romantic with the whole feeling of the movie.
For sure. It's done well, but it's still never... even sad. Kill Bill feels more like it's...
It's just ridiculous. Yeah. It was just so much. I feel like rewatching the end, like this movie's like got that same thing, but then in Kill Bill it's like they'll stand off at the end, but then there'll be like, Spanish guitars going like at the end and stuff, and it's like, what? That's my favorite thing in the world. I've just got to clarify. I love that more than anything. What a song choice.
Eastern meets Western, Kill Bill. You know, it's this fusion of the two, and it's like an appreciation for all of it rolled up together. And you know, he just loves it all, and you can feel that. And he's a terrific filmmaker, so he executes everything. You know, that's the thing about everything he's done. I mean, even his arguably worst film, Death Proof, has a car chase better than most movies will ever be able to accomplish. You know, I still
haven't rewatched that since you told me about that.
Yeah, but
really
like everything.
Oh, I know it's good. I know it'll be good.
Is of the best quality or of a very high quality.
And it just looks so good. Like there was, this isn't a criticism of Lady Snowblood because it's just like a thing where I'm sure they just, they didn't have whatever the fuck Tarantino's using. It's not, he's a better filmmaker, he just has better equipment. But there's a shot where it's like kind of above and we see like a pathway and the camera like pans down or like comes down and the two characters are walking down the path away from us and the camera couldn't be shaken more. It's like the guy.
Yes, there are a few shots like that.
And there's 3 or 4, but this one's the worst because it's a still shot that just kind of pans out and it's shaking like a madman. Like someone's had 1,000 bits of coffee and it's just like, and it's insane. Even, I was like, what the fuck? There's another shot right at the start of the movie where she's walking before she kills all the people at the start in the first scene and her foot hits the ground and she hears, like, I guess it's her hearing something's coming and the camera slowly moves from one side of her face all the way around to the other, but the camera's kind of going a bit, and the camera's kind of moving. And in that bit, the frenetic energy and the tension and the camera moving like that, I was like, oh, I'm on board for this. Shit doesn't need to be smooth. But then this other later show I'm talking about, like, if you fucking watch it, you'd be like, oh, I just...
But again, I have to say that it's interesting. It feels really kind of intentionally like drawing your focus to it in an odd way.
It might be intentional
because this film shows that it's capable of doing a really great job with its camera work at so many points in time, and it's not as if that shot very easily could have just been on a tripod, locked off, and achieved something very similar, but it's almost
that's why I noticed it the most, because I was like, what the fuck is going on here? Maybe it was intentional. That's kind of wild.
I mean, is it to put you... I mean, that is the scene...
To put you off?
Yeah, are you meant to feel uneasy? Like, it's
what is the scene there? Because I'm trying to remember what actually happens after that bit.
It's that shot? It's the beginning of the horrific shit that's about to happen to the family.
It's the flashback.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure.
Oh my god, it's definitely intentional. This is the greatest movie ever.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Is that just there to throw you? Is it like intentionally, like horribly?
Because it totally shaky? Is like, it's weird and it made me go like, oh my god. This is where we need to be able to talk. I'd love to just call him up and talk to him and be like, hey, bro.
Yeah.
This shaky shot. What the fuck's up with it? Like, explain yourself.
It had to be intentional because you had so many beautiful shots in the rest of the movie.
Every shot is beautiful in the movie, and there's like 3 shots that are weirdly shaky. But that one in particular was like, I was like, what the fuck? It's like
very noticeable, lingers a bit too long.
It's way too shaky. It's like they're in. Yeah. And now I was about to say it's like they intentionally did it. It's like, that's what you're saying. Like, that now I think about it, I think I was just so like, my brain just went, that's made in the 70s, whatever. They,
I had that thought for a moment too, but
there's so much in this movie where I'm like,
yeah,
impressed, and maybe even more so because it's like fucking 50 years old, and this is better than most movies now.
I love seeing something so old and have it feel so kind of fresh and new.
Yeah, and also just I don't know. I always find it kind of amazing to watch something where, regardless of how much you think Tarantino has or hasn't taken, it's like, one of my favorite movies of all time does not exist without this. Like, this movie is like at least 20% of the inspiration, minimum, absolutely, for like Kill Bill, which I think is my second favorite Tarantino movie and one of my favorite movies. Because especially rewatching this and just, I replayed the Lucy Liu fight where they fight at the end. I was just, and when I typed that into YouTube, a bunch of Kill Bill shit just came up, and I just kind of was like, fuck. That's right. Kill Bill's the greatest fucking thing, you know? I remember going to see, we got this fucking cinema here in Melbourne, Astor Theatre, and I remember I saw Death Proof and Planet Terror together as a Grindhouse feature.
I saw the Hateful Eight there.
Oh, fuck
on film, 70 mil.
Nice. And so I remember seeing those two films there at the Astor, and the Astor in the big, like, kind of, you know, getting your popcorn area or whatever the fuck. They were playing the Kill Bill soundtrack, you know? And I was just like, I remember sitting there with my two mates at the time, and I guess they're still mates. It doesn't matter. Sitting there at the time and being like, fuck, like, this is so perfect. We're sitting here waiting to watch these, like a new Tarantino and a new Rodriguez movie. And they're playing the Kill Bill soundtrack in the lobby. And I was just like, oh my God. I don't know. I just, you know, Kill Bill's awesome. It's fucking sick. And I kind of feel like maybe I forget that I really like Tarantino because his last movie I saw just kind of like, they all end like this. And, you know how you say with Doctor Who, sometimes you see through the fabric of the writing or with any show really, but you were mentioning that before with Doctor Who, where it's like you just see through
the formula,
kind of like what they are. Like I feel like, I don't know, a lot of people like you and me have hit that with Joss Whedon a bit post Avengers 2, where you're just kind of like, yeah, I just, you know, I get that. I get it. I get what he's doing. I feel like Tarantino hit that with me with like Hateful Eight. I really, really liked at the time. Then like the second or third time I watched it, I was like, is this nothing at all? I don't know if that's how I feel now, but you know,
I've never rewatched the Hateful Eight.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. See, I think I was on
mixed, very mixed on it when I walked out. And I really loved seeing it in that experience. I know the experience
looks so good, man.
The experience was everything I wanted it to be. And so I that's when I knew, because I haven't seen, like, his other films I just saw in a standard cinema, and this one I saw in, like, the best possible conditions that he wants you to see it in. And
that first fucking one shot where it's just like on that statue in the foreground, in the background the coach comes for like 4 minutes, and I remember sitting there in the cinema and I'm like, what has he done? What is this going to be?
I was like, is a 70mm film reel even that long? Like, how long can you shoot? Yeah, I didn't even know.
But then now I'm kind of like, did you need to do all that fancy bullshit? It's fucking set in one room.
Yeah.
You know, like, he keeps all the outside shots look great, but you're outside for like 2 minutes. I was on such a high from that movie because I watched it. My brother got me like years ago. Whenever this fucking movie came out, feels like fucking 100 years ago. But my brother got me a single ticket, so I went alone to see the movie in 70mm at some cinema somewhere. But Tarantino was like there with the Q&A. So I actually saw him with the Q&A with Samuel Jackson and Kurt Russell. Yeah. So I've seen him like in person, I suppose. And I was in a pretty good seat, kind of quite close up at the front, like on an edge. You know how like the cinemas will have like 3 blocks? So I was on the far like right, but kind of on the far left of that block. So, you know, get up quickly if you need to go to the toilet kind of seat. Not that, you know, you're going to leave in the movie, but it's like kind of still centered. And so they walked down that aisle thing to like where we were. So I was like pretty close to them. But Tarantino kind of like did this thing as he's running down like the aisle, like yelling, being like, "Oh, Tarantino!" And he's at the end of the movie, he's like, "Whoa, you know, Tarantino fans." But he was kind of playing up in a way where I just remember this like made me change my opinion on him in a weird way. Where he was like, "What was your favorite scene in the movie? Was it the bit where the guy's head exploded?" And everyone's like, "Yeah!" And I was just like.
He was doing crowd work, and you were like, "Nah, I'm not having it, mate. I want you to talk about this movie for real.
I'm saying
You're
this
a real
now.
filmmaker. Don't do this."
No, I'm saying this out now. I'm like, it's a bit insane because obviously, play to the crowd. That's but it was also like it just dawned on me like as I realized the formula, as it was kind of clicking in my brain on those rewatches. That line just kept coming into me, and I'm just like, he isn't anything. He's just gore. He just blows up someone's head and goes, "That's good enough, bitches." Just tension in a room where everyone looks at each other and goes, "Oh, who's the Nazi? Am I a Nazi?" And then everyone's just dead. And then everyone talks a bit after. But I changed my opinion now. I think that's a bad way to look at it, especially just looking at this and rethinking about Kill Bill and watching some scenes where I'm like, he's the greatest. But that line there was something about it where I was just like, I don't know, that's all I can remember him saying. That's the only time I've seen like someone huge and famous and real, like in real life. And that's all I can remember him saying. And that Samuel L. Jackson looks so young. You know, like he was bald and clean shaven, and he was just the silkiest, shiniest man in the world. And it was like, what the fuck? What fucking baby oil are you smearing on your face to make you look 35? I just watched the movie you're in, and you're 70 in it. What happened?
I really wanted, I mean, after watching this movie, and then realizing like what Kill Bill is to this movie, and then I thought back to an episode we did a little while ago.
Oh, yeah.
And another 1970s classic film we watched called Suspiria. And I thought to myself, I want the Kill Bill version of Suspiria in the modern... Someone who loves that movie as much as I enjoyed watching it that first time, remaking it, taking some of the things I think that worked in the remake, but also...
keeping the goddamn color.
Yeah, that's what Tarantino does. Yeah, he keeps the color.
Yes,
He embraces the whole thing. He's the big warm hug and a big love letter. Whereas Suspiria feels ashamed of that, and like it has to be its own dark grey thing, which in itself is very unoriginal and boring and flat.
It took everything right with Suspiria and just said, let's make a different movie. It's like, just make a different movie then.
But I've heard other people's opinions who I respect, who really do like the Suspiria remake. And, you know, and I've been listening to that song, like, again and again. That Suspiria remake song is exceptional. But yeah, the movie I don't ever want to watch again.
I'd still say that doesn't really even hold a candle because the Goblin soundtrack, Suspiria.
Yes.
I remember, because when I rewatched the movie, I don't even know if I said this properly on the podcast because I can't clearly remember what I said or didn't say, but that movie fucking freaked the fuck out of me as a kid because the soundtrack is just scary. It's weird and it's off and it's wrong and it's like, it's just fucking off. And it's
nothing
weird.
in the Suspiria remake scared me at all. It unsettled. It made me feel gross watching that woman piss herself.
That's a fantastic sequence. That sounds real bad out.
Nothing genuinely scared me. Like, that made me, you got a kind of automatic bodily response to doing disgusting things on screen. That's not a scare. A scare is like building tension and a moment of catharsis.
Having unease after. And like, I remember when I was like fucking 15 or 18 or whenever I was watching it the first time, just being like, oh, like it's, you know, it's like dun, dun. It's got that weird like feeling about the music and just like streaks and shouts, and it just made me go like, oh nah, like that's creepy. Like I don't want to watch it at night, kind of creepy. And like that music's so wild. I don't know. Oh, just you saying that makes me almost angry, man. It's like I don't even think I hated Suspiria until you said that, where you made me realize that we should have a Suspiria that's like. Because Kill Bill's like Lady Snowheart, but in a way it's like, it's on crack. It's like, instead of 8 people, it's 88. And like, there's just so much more. And he's able to use filmmaking in the way it's what he's done really well, Tarantino, is like, his movies use special effects and, I don't know, sets, just things that you can do now that you probably just maybe couldn't do. I feel maybe.
But what he does, like what he is able to do is recapture like the incredible tone that Lady Snowblood has, and then not only give it to you again, but repackage it and use modern
play Spanish music and shit.
There's that, but even just the stuff he's taking and giving us kind of more of, he's trying to expand on and trying to execute to the best of his ability, and like really taking the next step. Taking Lady Snowblood.
It feels like maybe even a couple more steps. Like I'm sure there's a few films
for sure
in like, a few films, all the films in between that are more stepping stones in terms of. But he really does take that like.
I guess what I'm trying to say is when someone remakes a movie, I want them to do it like Quentin Tarantino does, and it's not about you having to do anything that he does in particular, but it's more about you're taking the elements that the really, truly successful people figured out how to do really well and then you're going to try and tell your own story and use those elements. And that's what the best people are constantly doing. There's nothing like... When I think of the 1970s Suspiria film, I think of the imagery and I think of the music like clanging in my head and like a dizzying, colourful, like nightmarish vision. And
fucking
like
hyper-coloured nightmare.
All of it coming together to give me like something tonally that you can't get anywhere else. But the remake just felt so flat and familiar, and like, do you even know what the original was? Were we watching the same thing? Are you colorblind? Do you... You know what I mean? Like, did you have the saturation turned down on your TV when you watched this fucking movie?
They watched it in black and white.
Yeah. Did you get... Yeah. Well, I don't know what happened here. It's like we watched a different thing. You got so much... You got a different thing out of it, and you made something that I just never would have imagined. And...
No, I can't... all I can remember from that film now is that Tilda Swinton played a man or something like that, and I just didn't notice. That's how bored. That's how much I hated the movie. I didn't even notice
straight away, and it
I know. I remember you telling me that, and I was like, "Oh my god, what the fuck? Did I even watch it?" I did. It's just so boring to me.
Yeah.
And so like I feel like if it wasn't called Suspiria, and you're like, check out this cool witch movie, I probably would have loved it.
Yeah, maybe actually.
It's just that it being Suspiria. It's like, what the fuck is this? This is just anti-Suspiria. And something about that fundamentally just makes me a bit like, oh, okay, well, don't call it Suspiria then. There's so many movies where it's like, they make it like total reboots and RoboCops and this and that. And I'm like, well, I don't know. But I bet you they don't fundamentally just go, well, just be the opposite of the... I mean, actually, I say that now, but... Fuck, that's probably exactly what they do. I haven't seen it. Yeah. That's probably exactly what they do.
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes you get a Kill Bill, sometimes you get a RoboCop 2014.
But the best thing is all these films we've been saying aren't like, inspired by. They're all actual remakes and stuff. Whereas Kill Bill, as much as there is strong similarities, it's just an inspired by... story, with revenge. And I'm sure there's 10 other revenge films that he's watched where he's like, oh, it's actually, mostly this other revenge film where a woman was brutally murdered and then this happened and then she came back and did this and, all that stuff, which is why it's able to stand so alone but kind of in homage of, because it's so its own story and none of this, he doesn't try and do any real tricky stuff like have anyone be dead or undead. Like it's just, she really is on quite a black and white journey of killing all these awful pieces of shit that ruined her wedding or whatever. I'm trying to remember that film.
Ruined her wedding is the biggest understatement.
Well, that's essentially what they did, right?
Yeah, I mean, technically, they did ruin her wedding.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's a good movie. I think I will probably watch the sequel now we've talked about it so much. Like, I'm so curious.
I'm interested, yeah.
Because we've talked about it so much, there are so many thoughts of what it could be. Like, is it a trashy Friday the 13th sequel? Or is it a bloody, is it like Kill Bill 2 where it's like, no. Like, I don't look at Kill Bill 2 going like, oh, what a sequel. You know what I mean? It's like, oh no, it's just the movie was too long to be one movie, so 2 movies. Yeah. Maybe it's like that. Who knows? Like, yeah.
The idea
this one was that
Kill Bill was one movie is insane. It should be 2. It works so well. It seems like it was envisioned that way, but it's just crazy to me that it wasn't.
What a long...
That he was going to do a 4-hour epic and thought that would work. Like,
and then halfway through it ends, like it just fully ends after like the biggest action scene, and then just he was like, but then 2 more hours. And
but then did he?
That's just another movie.
Scenes, but did he move scenes around after realizing?
God,
you know what I mean?
I wouldn't even consider that
because it's all non-linear.
It feels so. Yeah, but it feels really linear in its non-linear fashion. I'm saying that, and I've realized I've probably just seen the movie too many times, where that's how it flows, because that's how it flows. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like maybe...
Like I can't even imagine it playing out the normal way, because that would be so boring. You know, just I don't know.
I think
it's the same as this movie where you introduce a few elements, but she does do the first kill, and then we get some stuff. You know, it's like baby, but then she's adult, and then back to kid, and you know, it jumps around a bit.
Yeah,
keeps it interesting. You know,
yeah, absolutely, and sells you on what the film is going to be, and like is doing all of the necessary groundwork to get us to where the movie wants to be, and what it's already kind of shown us a glimpse of. So it's really, really effective. It's really, really punchy and to the point and very well executed. And the intentional mistakes, I'm going to say, are all intentional. Because if they just overexpose the whites, and that was just a result of them not exposing the film properly, I can't believe that that's what happened, because it just it's too effective. And maybe it was, you know, maybe they just shot one scene one day and they overexposed all the whites and they went, oh, this is a really effective mistake. Let's keep doing it like this. Maybe it was a mistake that bred something.
It could have formed from that way, for sure.
You discover things.
The way you've talked about it's got to be at some point an intentional mistake in a way.
And which also makes me think the shaking camera in that scene, you know, but you know, because it was just such a scenic location, and where it's leading to, and when we know it goes, at the time when you see it, maybe it's just there to make you notice it, make you go, oh, this is unsettling, because it is unsettling. You know, watching the camera shake that much, you're like, what the fuck? Why? We're not looking at anything important. This is just tranquil scenery, and then we cut to a family walking, and then. Yeah. Yeah,
the horror. Yeah. No, I think the way you phrased it, it's like, it's got to be intentional. Or the best mistake ever.
Yeah.
Because it isn't, like, as soon as I was like, wait, when was this shaky cam scene? I don't remember now. I just remember it happening. But it's like, oh, no, just presumed because of like, it's not even that old, but it's like 50 years old. It's like, well, you know, of the time or whatever. But no, it's perfection. It's genius. Love it.
With the greatest song ever, bookending the movie, I think
so well. Yeah,
that helped me get into it too. If you're a fan of Kill Bill, you're already familiar with that piece of music, and I've listened to the Kill Bill soundtrack. I don't know how many times. So I've listened to that. I've listened to that track. I don't know how many times, and when it started playing, cut against the visuals, and then realizing. Like, I've never known what the lyrics are, but the subtitles I had the lyrics to the song, and I'm realizing, this song is just about this movie, like, directly referencing the sword and the umbrella and, like, her tail.
Oh, fuck, is it really?
That's the lyrics in the song, so it's actually kind of... God. Yeah, and it's just synonymous with crazy. Kill Bill.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah. It's kind of awesome to see. It's like, it in a way, it's kind of like... Well, I was about to say in a way, but in the exact same way. It kind of reminds me of when I saw the movie Django, and I watched it because of the movie Django Unchained was coming out, and I was like, oh shit, I can't wait. I was like, because I found out that Django Unchained, which Tarantino had called that as a reference to all the movies that were called Django something after the movie Django, so that people in the cinemas would go, Django Unchained or whatever the fuck, Django He's Totally Chained or whatever, and they'd go see it thinking it's a Django sequel because that movie was so successful. And I was like, that's a bloody goddamn, that's the most Tarantino thing I've ever heard in my entire life at the time.
And then Django rocks up in the movie, the real one.
Oh, it's so good. He's like, the deer's silent. He's like, I fucking know, bitch. It's my movie, you cunt. You don't know it's me, you bitch. No, but it's so it's so good in Django at the start, and he's just like, Django, oh Django, and the Django song plays, and it's so fucking good. But then Tarantino uses it, and it's just as good, if not better, because Tarantino's he's the best. He's so good. Oh my lord. And yeah, it's the same thing where he's taken Django, the song from Django, but now it's probably more synonymous with Django Unchained. But that's
a couple of songs in the Django. I think most of the music actually in the Django Unchained soundtrack is from other movie soundtracks.
Oh my god, is it really? That's probably my favorite.
I think there's a track. There's a track called Nicaragua. something like that on the Django soundtrack that is from, I think, a movie called that. Just that, and
oh really?
It's one of my favorite tracks on there. It's just like an instrumental.
I know there's a few songs on there by Ennio. I'm going to say his name wrong, but I'm going to
Morricone. Yeah.
Yes, and he was the guy who did the Good, the Bad, the Ugly trilogy and all that music and all the Sergio Leone music. Yeah. So maybe some other movies he made music for, they're actually just from those. Because I guess I thought, oh shit, he did that for this, but maybe not. Yeah, that's pretty. That soundtrack's so good. So
yeah,
he's such a wild guy. He just picks such wild music. It just works so well. It's too cool. I don't understand. But then he's spawned such a generation of people of our age and a bit older and younger that are like that pop culture in movies can become so. I can't remember the title of the movie, but I watched a movie once where it's just the most. This is what we like Tarantino. Let's try and do it. And I found it so abhorrent. Like that pop song would play, and I'd be like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna die! I'm going to die! Make the movie stop!" And it's like, but I don't. Not to say Tarantino spawned more of that than created good, but there has been a weird like people trying to do what he does with pop music and that kind of violence and just style and cool. Like so many awful people in his movies are just so cool, and no one else can do that. I feel like no one else can find that balance. It's such a weird balance as well.
Yeah.
We need to do some Tarantino movies for the pod at some point. I'm now realizing.
Yeah, I'd love to too.
I feel like honestly this movie, just because it made me think of Kill Bill, not even in the bad way where I'm like, oh, Kill Bill. But because after the movie I sat there and I'm like, man, I'm gonna look at some stuff and just think about Kill Bill for a bit. It just made me realize how much I did love Tarantino and how fucking wild he is.
Well, it really felt like we probably should have done Kill Bill with this movie, you know, like the same way we did Rear Window and Disturbia.
Oh my god. Maybe we should have, yeah.
We've done a lot of double stuff, and I like the fact that we just did one. I like doing just one movie sometimes because you really get to just focus on...
Yeah, a bit more of a deep dive. I feel like my brain doesn't get so lost. Although this has, I don't know.
Especially with Kurosawa, because you watch 2 and I watch 3, and I almost feel like I bit off more. It's a lot of movie. Well, it's not just that it's, you know, that they're long movies. And
that's what I mean.
No. I'm saying a few things at once here. Let me get all my thoughts out. It's not just that they're long movies. It's not just that they're classic movies. It's not just that they're Kurosawa movies. It's like all of those things on top of each other. And then it's me watching these movies for the first time and having to surmise them. And then you didn't watch one of them, so I'm kind of half referring to it. And then I just ended up going, maybe I should have just done Seven Samurai.
Yeah.
Should have started off a bit lighter. So it was good to just do one. And it was short and sharp, and I really, really enjoyed it. It's a favorite of mine. It's I can see this becoming a favorite of mine, I should say. Yeah, something special. Something everyone should check out. Then the narrative is effective, the non-linear storytelling is great, and the performances are all really good. I think, you know, some of it gets hammy, but it fits. It really fits what's going on here. Maybe it's because I saw that replicated and then taken further in Kill Bill as well. The sensibilities are just that he takes and runs with, and semi-westernizes, but more just leans into, are all on display here and all. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just sucking the movie's dick now. I don't.
Yeah, no, but it's, you know, it's a movie worthy of dick sucking, you know? It's so good. It really is so cool. Like, just from beginning to end. Like, just my favorite bit was the start where the snow, you know, through the pallets of the wood in the prison, the snow's white and it turns blood red, and then the blood just explodes on the screen and it's like, movie title. And I'm like, oh, fuck, yeah. Like, oh, fuck, yeah. Like, this is, I know I'm going to be in. And then that first scene, and it's just like, the first thing starts and you're like, oh shit, this chick is awesome. Then the movie ends and she's rising out of her own blood and you're like, fuck yeah. It's so good, man.
They do an interesting like scene transition here and there where they'll kind of like linger on someone's face and then the camera will just kind of float off into the out of focus area.
Oh, yeah, they did do that a bunch. Yeah, that was yeah, it was an interesting like just choice.
I found it very distracting the first time, but then when I kind of saw what they were going for, I just kind of went with it. And then I learned, we are, they're denoting the transition into a flashback or a memory or a, something like that was generally what it was leading to. And a character reflecting on something, and
Yeah, I really liked it. I just like that kind of stillness, and there's like kind of floating off.
Yeah.
Feels like, I don't know, it's just non-conventional things that kind of like work. Yeah, I really like that kind of stuff. Just a bit odd, but
it's a risk, It's like this. This is something that you don't really see a lot of, and it's interesting. It's something I could see Tarantino kind of trying to replicate him, and maybe he has, and I just didn't even notice it. But
yeah,
like I know he always does the split prism image. Every one of his movies, he has like that like in Reservoir Dogs,
both in focus shot.
Yeah, but someone's in the foreground and someone's in the background, and they're both in focus.
Yeah, those never really worked that well for me. I feel like they always look a bit weird to me for some reason.
Well,
always,
because you're using
sometimes.
mirrors and prisms to distort the image. Essentially, what he's doing is he's flexing that he can. I mean, you're just splitting the focus and creating a composition of two totally separate parts of the frame. So
right.
It's a little kind of fancy filmmaking technique, and most people don't notice it. Most people, it goes.
I notice it. I always feel like it's unfancy. I always feel like it's like, oh, that doesn't look right for some reason.
Right. I'm trying to think of an example where it's used really effectively. His movies, it tends to be a little more showy, whereas I can think of movies I've seen it in where it is used to better effect. But I can't think of any off the top of my head. I feel like some we watched recently even, but nothing's
none are coming to my head. There's a terrible one in like the second last episode of Sons of Anarchy, and it's like the most pivotal moment of the show, and they do that shot, and I remember being like, "Oh, the show is ruined." And then the finale, the last 3 shots of the show, the most CGI, just like, oh, don't put them together. Oh, like just composition. That's like, no. Oh, you've ruined the whole thing.
Do you know what I really want to see someone do with like a split prism focus thing is actually have someone interact in both halves of the frame, like walk from the foreground to the background.
Oh my God.
Like, I don't think I've ever seen something like that done. But, you hold on the image, but you've got 2 images within it, so you can have them.
You could probably Google it, and someone's probably done it, true?
For sure, yeah. It's surprising that you don't see it more. Generally, they're very static. You don't want the camera moving at all, and you generally want your people to stay pretty locked off because the focus has to be precise, and you can't pull focus. I don't imagine you can. I think that's generally why they're just static frames. Because you're having to focus each side of the frame, so you would have to pull focus if you move the camera, if the people move, or I don't know. I'll have to look at how it's done. But best movie ever.
Best movie ever. Fuck yeah. Should we wrap it up with that?
Sure. Yeah. Spoiler Talk is produced by KCBN Studios and Space Kraken Media.